Howdy folks, here we are at Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield Park. I'll get you some outside pictures in front here. They have several pieces of artillery. I always like to call them cannon, but really they're mortars and everything else. Now obviously inside, since there's music playing, I had to cut the natural audio, but I thought I would just quickly go through this for you. It explains a lot. If you're really interested and want to know, ask the rangers here. They have a lot of knowledge about this subject, of course, and they can show you some information you might not find elsewhere. It's readily available. As I said, this is all very quickly going through the information. If you want to see this, you need to go visit yourself. This is not meant to be something where you're able to absorb all the information. This was not a planned stop. I thought I had some extra time, and I stopped in here, and I didn't have as much extra time as I thought I had, as it turned out. Or maybe I would have been okay if I had just done the outside part, because there is a driving tour also. As always, when I take video, I try to be considerate of other people, make sure that I am not being obtrusive to them. So sometimes that's reflected in some of the camera angles that I don't manage to edit out, or I may have to cut a piece out because I did edit out, or I'm just waiting, or I stop the camera and start it again later. I actually ran out of battery. Not necessarily because there wasn't enough battery. Let me get my legs there. But more so because the hotel where I stayed the previous night, the outlets would only charge for a little bit and then they would turn off. So what charge I had was from charging in my vehicle, using the same charger plugs into the outlet. I used the same exact charger. I don't know what the deal was. The previous night the charger worked fine, and I used it again when I got home and it still works fine. So I don't know what happened at the hotel. As I said, there is quite a lot of information here. If you want to see this, you really should come see it yourself. And that brings us to where we are. Get some shots of me in the glass there. Now, anytime you do something like this, everyone would present the information a little bit differently. So sometimes the way it was presented here, the quick look I took, it didn't perhaps make as much sense to me as I would have liked. But again, I was doing this very, very quickly. We'll go out and look at the actual battlefields a little bit here. One of the most obvious things is some of the generals in the war in this area at least, knew mountains, and some of them did not. And a lot of people died because some people were not familiar with the terrain. Speaking of battlefields, there you are. It's kind of you can walk up there and everything, but it's very restricted of what you're allowed to do on this field for obvious reasons. They're trying to preserve things for our posterity. Yep. I parked down by the Pigeon Forge lot and took a little walk. I did not walk over to that gravestone on the hill, that marker there on the hill. I took a little bit of video off and on here, but yeah, you don't want to see me doing a whole bunch of walking, bouncy. And honestly, that's not the most exciting part of this. I walked a total of about 17 miles, which maybe further than you want to walk, but you don't have to do it in 3.5 hours either. So I was generally making pretty good time. If you stick to the main trail, you can easily, well, I was easily able to make 5 miles an hour. We're looking at some of the locations where they were. You can see the remains of some earthworks here where they dug in. Of course, they were higher at one point in time. Also be aware that this area at the time of the Civil War was very agricultural, so there were very few trees. It was mostly plowed, farmland and such. So where you see a forest, yeah, it was not at that time. I did not always stick to the main trail, and although I stopped on occasion, as you can see, so this is not the main trail, obviously. I went down the mill trail, but I was setting a pretty good pace most of the time. In order to improve the quality of the video, I slowed down when I took the video, which is one of the reasons why I didn't take a whole lot of video, was because it would have considerably lengthened my visit. And I was hoping to make 2 other stops after this before dark. For a variety of reasons, that didn't happen. See the trail on the other side of the creek here. And those guys are having a little fun on the bridge. Some more Confederate positions. Now, I did look at both Confederate and Union positions, and I hate to say it, but the Union generals were clearly flatlanders. They did not understand about mountain terrain. They basically sent people to their deaths through some terrain that was difficult to navigate in the best of circumstances, much less under fire. Some of the places you can see where the cannon were positioned, and again, there weren't all these trees here. you can see how high up these positions were. To be fair to the Union generals, the Confederates arrived here well before, like a week and a half. They had a good amount of time to pick the best terrain and dig in. But still, there was no excuse for frontal assaults on elevated, often fortified, in one fashion or another, positions. That's just terrible strategy unless you're trying to kill your people. You will notice there will seem to be a lot of Confederate positions, but they had a big line of people. That doesn't necessarily mean they had more people. By the end of the engagements, often they had more people, for sure. Alright, I was trying to get this guy on his little two-wheeled contraption, but it didn't work out. Now, you're not allowed to walk on these earthworks here. Or again, still looking at the Confederate positions. And boy, anyone coming across there, I mean, that was just death. Coming across that field. Take a little walk around so you can see from the other side here. I'm trying not to create any problems walking on the earthworks. I want to make sure that I'm not the one who messes things up. There's kind of a trail I'm following. You see it comes down here and joins this larger trail. Now, to many people, this is just a hiking park, and that is absolutely fine. Other people come here to see, what there is to see on a battlefield. See the the artillery over there. You'll often see here that the Union is referred to as the Federals, but that's the same thing. Alright, so monument for the Texas soldiers that fought and died here. We'll get both sides of the monument. All right. Yeah, it would help a lot the visualization if the trees weren't in the way. It gives you a much better idea of the terrain, but apparently not everyone is able to tell about some of these elevations. I believe 2 of the Union commanders died with their attacks here. So despite superior technology and therefore superior weaponry, superior a number of things that the Union had, even that technology gave them better accuracy with their artillery because of rifling in the barrels. The Confederates were able to hold the Union off largely because they had superior positions. This area has an incredible amount of fortification. This was the high ground, and the Confederates made sure to make the most of it. I'm not sure what some of these, I don't know if that was just erosion. There were a number of places like that. They're just kind of gouged out a little bit. You can see on the outside there is definitely some erosion. And again, don't climb on the earthworks. Now they said, obviously if looking at this you can tell this isn't necessarily true. They said that the Confederates stood inside and tossed the earth up on the opposing side, but you can see they did it from both sides, probably largely from the outside, and tossed it up. And honestly, it makes more sense to me to toss it up from the outside. As you can see here, they refer to this as field fortifications, and I certainly see it as fortifications. Some of the people there say no, fortifications would be, you know, some kind of a, like a wooden or brick or stone or something wall. A wall is a wall. You build a wall out of earth, it's still a wall. Sometimes you'll see the same names repeated over and over on these signs. That's just, you know, they had an extended line. You know, we have over 5,000 troops. You're going to have a good sized line. And you can see they were just lined right up. There are a number of grave sites in the area. Also, in a conversation with somebody here, they were saying that at the time of the Civil War, they didn't know about scouting and things like that. It makes absolutely no sense to me, because they knew about it back in the medieval times. They knew about it during the Revolutionary War, so how the heck would they have forgotten it or not have learned it yet at the time of the Civil War? I think that was just poor schooling on the part of some of these generals. Now you see that this is fresh. People leave, you know, plastic or not, they leave flowers on these. I don't know who exactly. I mean, it doesn't seem like they'd have any living, well, immediate relatives. I do understand, I'm trying to think whose it was. There was a president either right before or right after Abraham Lincoln, and I think it's his grandson is still living as of the time of the this recording. That was, you know, he's old, he's in his 90s or something, but yeah, apparently there were a series of people that had children in their latter years. And this guy will be the last because he has no children. I'm sure at 97 or however old he is, he's aching and paining to have children. But some of these people have very interesting stories. People, going back to the video here, some of the people have very interesting stories, as you can read about. You know, we looked at the Texas monument earlier, of course. Behind me here is the Illinois monument we saw a moment ago. We'll get another view of that. Yes, let's see here. We can walk around. So the Union soldiers were trying to come across that field and then up this hill. And yeah, that wasn't going to happen. I'm not sure what this little arch thing is here. Get a closer look. And we can shine some light in there, I suppose. See how far back that goes. Come on, some light. It looks like you could fit an entire person in there, doesn't it? It's fairly deep. That's the Illinois Monument up there. Yeah, the Union troops, the terrain is difficult. You're not going up that hill. Not under fire. I mean, normally, yes. Like, you know, right now, sure, I could walk up there, but under fire was not happening. We can walk up here and look at the Illinois Monument for all the soldiers from Illinois in this division or brigade or whatever we're calling them. I know those are different things, but I can't ever figure out which is what. I guess a brigadier general gets a brigade. Yeah, I guess a brigade's part of whatever division. As I said about flowers and grave markers. All right. Here's another view of the field here. All right. Heading on down here. Now there are a lot of earthworks still. This is the grave of the unknown soldier here, I believe. Yep. They just found him after they'd moved the others. But I don't know where all these flowers and things come from. Now, as I was in here, there's a deer right on the other side of this, and eventually, apparently, when I walked up here, I startled the deer, and the deer ran off. Yeah, you can see there's lined right up across from each other. I actually had several cameras and several batteries with me, but due to other use and the fact that I couldn't charge them at the hotel, the deer's running off there, I went through them pretty quickly. Some more artillery. You just see how those are. Now I'm going to step on these rocks here. Just briefly, there is no sign saying you can't step on the earthworks here, but I'm trying not to disturb anything. Now, mostly we've been seeing Confederate artillery to this point. How about this one, side by side? All right, let's go see some Union artillery. There were 24 artillery pieces here. Obviously, there aren't that many today. Some of these are still, they're still trying to restore some of the things here. It's a work in progress. I don't believe they'll put all 24 artillery pieces back, but this is for the Union. And you think you have the high ground here, but not really. You don't really. Yeah, I think a scout troop did one of these, this one or one of them. So yeah, they're shooting across over at the Confederates. These are rifled barrels on these, so they have much better accuracy than the Confederate artillery. But because of geographical advantages, the Union fought to a stalemate and lost many, many men, including some of the commanders, by the way. One of the commanders, he said, with today's charge, that he said, I'll die with today's charge, or I won't survive today's charge, or something to that effect. And he did not. He was mortally wounded. I forget what those are called, where the artillery was sitting back there. And in the documentation, and from what the ranger said, there were 3 artillery pieces here, but then I saw this one, like I count 4. This one's a little bit different from the others, you'll notice. And we're not going to walk all the way back to the visitor center. Let's see if I can give you a little long shot here. Yes, all right. And again, even though you see hills here, there weren't that many. So the 24 gun battery, you can see how they were lined up. That was all going. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video here. There is a lot to see. You can see how the rifled barrels sit on the kind of lower third and the right there. Anyway, I hope that you found this enjoyable and informative. See you in the next one.